Good afternoon. It's a beautiful day, and today happens to be the 5th of October 2021. We're live from Kampala's Strande Conference Center. I'm Andrew Chamaglan. We're celebrating the International Teachers' Day. Around the globe, celebrations are underway, and given the COVID-19, a lot of disruptions have been registered at the different layers of the teachers, be it social life, be it psychological, be it their usual lives. Some have had some shifts so as to survive. Today, we're celebrating the teachers in a great way, powered by the Stromme Foundation. Those are fighting poverty at all layers. And to understand how teachers are going to recover, given that the theme this year's International Teachers' Day celebration is Teachers at Heart of Education Recovery. As we're planning for education to recover as a country, as a continent, and on a global scale, we're trying to find lasting solutions that are going to be much more feasible. To bring this conversation home with me in studios, I have Brenda Atim, the Regional Education Manager from the Stromme Foundation, that is East Africa. She's a regional one. And of course, we have Joseph Walugembe, a program coordinator, Together for Inclusion, that is still under Stromme Foundation East Africa. Then we have George Ogwal. He happens to be the head teacher of Omoti Hill Primary School, and Proskovia Nguna, the lead caregiver at Bukana ECCD Center. This conversation is on your digital platforms, and the hashtag is Resilient Teachers 2021. Good afternoon, my great panel.
Good afternoon.
I'm very excited to have you. Good to have you, a team. Good to have you, Mr. Walugembe. Good to have you, Proskovia, and Mr. Gual. Well, to start with, Brendan, tell us about the Stromme Foundation. I see fighting poverty. Is that all that you do? If you're fighting poverty, how do you fight poverty?
Well, an interesting one. Like I said, my name is Brenda Atim,
yes,
and I work for Stromme Foundation East Africa. And Stromme Foundation is an international Norwegian-based organization, and like you've already highlighted, we fight poverty. We are contributing to the end of poverty, and we do this in a number of ways. First, we have 3 thematic areas and goals. The first one is civil society strengthening. The second goal that we use to fight poverty is through inclusive education, inclusive quality education and lifelong learning. And lastly, we have programs and projects around economic empowerment for the rural poor. So that is basically what we do. We work across the region. We work in Uganda, Tanzania, South Sudan, working with community-based organizations to ensure that we rally behind interventions that contribute towards the end of poverty. Wow,
that is remarkable. Mr. Walugembe, I see here you're the program coordinator for Together for Inclusion. Now, my key word here is inclusion. What kind of inclusion does this bring with, or what context is so unique with the word inclusion here?
Thank you, Andrew, and once again, good afternoon, viewers. At the Stromme Foundation, we have a philosophy that everyone, and indeed no one, should be left out of any programs, and particularly as it relates to education. So here, inclusion means bringing everybody on board, regardless of their situation, regardless of their disadvantage. And at Stromme Foundation, we are part of a consortium. Consortium means a group of organizations working together, which we call the Together for Inclusion program. And this program particularly aims at promoting the inclusion of people with disabilities, 1, in economic empowerment programs, 2, in quality education programs, and underpinning those 2 programs is through the promotion for the respect of their human rights.
Wow. That is very great, and that it happens to be Joseph Walugembe from, of course, Stromme Foundation, but he's more on the inclusion bit. So people with disabilities, he's your guy, and he's here. This is inclusion now. We're having a national teachers conversation, and no one is left behind. Proskovia, the lead caregiver. Now, Prosy, during COVID-19, with all that has been going on, as a caregiver, what did you see in your areas? What took your attention and you're like, wow, this is happening?
Thank you. I'm Proscovia, a caregiver at Bukana Primary School in Luka District. During COVID season, what touched me a lot is performance of children at home was poor. They could not revise their books, they were redundant, they could not do anything concerning with what? With books. So during COVID season, me as a parent and as a teacher, I looked at my children at home. I interviewed them, but they were totally down. So what I did, I talked to the LOCs, the police, they gave us permission to operate these home learning what? Centers. So after opening up the learning centers, I sensitized my parents, I talked to them, I made visitations. So in that process of visiting them, we were talking about how can we recover education for these children. And in that long process, some parents formed a group of sensitizing other parents to get more children. We got a center, children came, and in that process, parents, I made parents to at least encourage their children to come to the what? To the centers. And then these parents were able to make the learning materials, the bolos, the ropes out of these banana fibers to bring to the center, the home learning centers. We use them for playing, to refresh the minds, such that they come together in mind. And this helped them to gain concepts that were lost during the COVID season when we are not yet in the home learning centers. And this helped me a lot to achieve the goal. And I hope when the education resumes, we shall be able to start when we have something at least.
That is very remarkable. That is Proscovia. She happens to run the center. She's the lead caregiver at Bukana ECCD. That is a center, like she has explained it. I think it was a great initiative. Mr. Gual George, you as a headmaster, let's have a conversation about this whole thing. During the COVID-19 and all that happened, you saw your staff crumbling, your teachers going down, you saw your support structure breaking at all levels. What came in your mind as a team leader?
Yeah, we saw that the situation wasn't easy, and we had to come up with very many remedies. That was a period when people have lost hope. I started approach through our teachers. We sat down in our groups. We say we should not now break and go to our various different villages. Let us sit around the school. We stay in the quarter so that we act as reference. We mobilize our parents. We inform our learners that they should be consulting us on appointed dates and time. On that one, we mobilized also parents. We created some learning centers. We realized that we had some other learners who were having some specific difficulties, learning difficulties, those ones with special needs. We gazetted their homes as a learning centers, and then we made these teachers to move in all these other places with an intention of keeping the hope, keeping faith to our learners. It wasn't easy, but we knew that the moment we as teachers were to regress, then at the end of the day, the whole thing would collapse. Now, as a result, we continue with that mobilization, and we started preparing home learning materials. We started preparing some form of assessment. We give these learners. But time came when things were not easy. You see, with learners, with children, they believe in assessment all the time. When they see this thing prolonging and continuing, then we say, no, let us come up with another remedy. So we struggle with these learners, but now we are happy and hopeful that at least they have not totally lost hope. Things will go our way when the school resume.
Mr. Gual, before I let you go, how did you keep the teachers' spirits, up? This is close to 2 years you're talking about, and these teachers are not going in school. How did you keep them, motivated? Where were you getting these funds of walking around? Was it on pro bono basis? Were you pulling funds? Were you tapping into your former SACCO to get the money that can facilitate them moving around? How were they motivated? That's what I'm trying to look for.
Good. Our teachers, we were one of the lucky schools in northern Uganda, particularly in Gulu. Our school is being supported by Tofi, who are working in partners with Stromme. Then this organization here started by developing the capacity of our teachers.
Nice.
Teachers were being trained on how to handle children with various disabilities. For the start, it wasn't easy, because when we look at their objectives, their major objective was for inclusive education. With the inclusive education, they wanted everybody to be in the school, be present in the school, participate and achieve, regardless of your problem, regardless of your various form of disabilities. Then through the training, they first of all started tackling training as the teachers. In the process, we developed a lot of hope. Then from that point, we now told the teachers, most of nearly the greater percent of our teachers were already in the government payroll. And as you know, during COVID, teachers were being paid. It was a matter of talking to these teachers to come to their senses, that you are being paid, not that you go and stay at your home. You stay within the quarter, as if let us continue doing our normal routine duties. So we talk to most of our teachers. Good enough, many of our teachers have their children in the school that we were also teaching in. Then we say, now if you are to go, you are leaving your child here, you want your child also to equally suffer like this other one there. We need to work as a team, then we can develop the place to make it better. From that point, our teachers became motivated, their children became part of the program, then the whole thing went well, and from that point, at least we have achieved something.
Resilient Teachers 2021, that's the conversation on Twitter. Thank you so much, Gual. That is very exciting. You can tell that from the word go, this is not an urban school, but there was leadership. I really want to commend you, Mr. Gual, on taking leadership. Now, coming back to you, Atim, when we look at all this going on, what roles should be played by various stakeholders in building more adaptive education systems that can be adaptive to the shockwaves like COVID?
Basically, a number of different stakeholders need to come together to support continued learning, but also key in it is the adaptations, bringing on board key adaptations because of the new normal situation that we are currently affected with. We all know, between you and me, we know that COVID-19 has brought a very unique, has had its own challenges, but also has presented unique opportunities for us as organizations, as different stakeholders to rally behind supporting continuity of learning. And some of the things that we need to do, focus on first, is the aspect of continuous professional development for the teachers. Because like we've been hearing, the teachers have spent close to 1.5 years, 2 years without being in an active classroom. And you know the challenges of not being in active practice. Possibly you may have forgotten exactly. So you need to really, we need to retool our teachers, to tool and retool our teachers. And most especially in the new normal adaptations, how do we support, for example, if the schools are to open, my assumption is there will be shifts, so how do we encourage the teachers to adapt this into their teaching and learning? The other thing is that, for example, the learners currently are traumatized. There's a lot of trauma. Some of them may have lost parents. They may have lost fathers and mothers. The teachers may have lost children as well. So there's a lot of trauma that is within the context we are operating in. So possibly integrating psychosocial support for teachers, but also for the learners, revamping the departments within the schools, the senior women teachers, the senior men teachers, building the capacities and giving them the skills to handle such delicate situations. A traumatized child, what do you do if you're teaching this kind of child? If this child is in your classroom, how do you handle them? How are you able to identify the red flags that come with, for example, a child that is disturbed, a child that is traumatized? How do you provide referrals? Who do you send this child to? And first of all, we need to start from the teacher themselves. For them to be able to provide this support, they need to be clear-headed. They need to be thinking straight and thinking right. So some of this needs to be mainstreamed into the teaching, possibly the professional courses that we are providing for the teachers, or so that they are able to comfortably support the learning process. But also key methodologies or pedagogical skills of instruction and learning in the classroom, and that I already highlighted. Yeah, because they need to be better equipped to handle the situation. Yeah. But
when we talk about that, before you go, Betty, rather Brenda, when we talk about them to be well equipped, can we equip teachers who are poor, who don't have food, teachers who have a family to feed, and they have to go back? Can we start with the basics? I need to see what models can we use to first of all give them the support financially, that they can have maybe you know, diversified kind of business ventures that can, in these 3 months, in this quarter, before the schools revamped. Have we thought about that? While we're doing this on the financial bit, you cannot teach a hungry person. That's what I'm worried about. How do we get about that?
As an organization, we have what we call the community managed savings schemes that we support all the, you know, the different persons in the community, including teachers. And we provide them with an opportunity to join the savings groups, and they be able to grow themselves and be able to earn something as a living. And besides, possibly this is a wake-up call for us that as you are in the mainstream profession, possibly you should be able to engage in any income-generating activity to supplement your income. Yeah, so basically what I encourage the teachers to be, it's a mixed function approach for now, because I know that currently, as I speak, some teachers, especially from the private sector, have been having extreme challenges because of the pandemic. They've actually gone into other income generating activities, which is good, but then also at the long run it has an impact on the education delivery. If at the end, at the long run, they decide not to get back into the classroom area.
That is the biggest worry here.
So here I think it's to create a balance on when you're in the mainstream education sector, if you have something small to do, it to help you to empower you to be able to support yourself. I think that is good. But also I know that there are a number of circles that are within the communities, and I know government has made strides in supporting teachers within the communities, especially the government aided teachers, and a lot is being done behind the scenes to support that. But by and large, the passion that the teacher has, we've seen teachers that have been resilient. They have that passion, money. With or without money. Teaching it's a profession. Calling. It's amazing. It's a calling. So if someone has a calling, even without those small they will still move. They will still move ahead. So that's why it's key for us on this day to celebrate the teachers, to celebrate those teachers that have been resilient, that have been dedicated, that have you know, dreaded the, you know, they have dreaded the challenges they've been facing and really moved forward. Yes.
Mr. Walugembe, let's talk about inclusion. From your perspective, how have the teachers ensured equity and inclusion for all learners in remote and home-based learning models, especially for the children with the disabilities? We have run stories here on TV where people with disabilities had issues that even when the education model was being thought about, the ones with disabilities, they were never included in this kind of agenda. So how have we achieved equity? Have we even achieved equity at any way?
Thank you very much, Andrew.
I know it's a tricky
think
one.
we've tried to work towards equity. We've definitely not achieved equality.
Yes.
As you've rightly put it, Andrew, there are lots of lessons to learn from how exclusive the COVID-19 education program was for learners with disabilities. For example, and here I don't need to be very nice.
Yes.
We not to be very unnice, but we had so many programs on television,
yes, indeed,
like we are having now, and I suspect like it's happening now, most of those programs do not have sign language interpreters.
Yes, true.
So it means children who are deaf did not benefit from the program.
Yes.
But even a lot of learning was happening on radio, and again they couldn't listen to radio. When you speak about children with visual impairment,
yes,
we had a lot of reading materials, but those materials were not transcribed in Braille scripts like I'm reading from right now. So.
Yes.
But I mentioned all those as lessons for the future.
Yeah.
And that said, I think that's why I'm very pleased to participate in today's event to celebrate the teachers, because these wonderful teachers made lots of improvisations. The learning centers were, for example, an intervention so much thought through with a child with a disability in perspective, because this was for the teacher to reach out to this child who cannot see or who didn't have sign language, and at least read for him the learning material or work with the child with the learning materials. And these teachers were going out of their ways.
Yeah.
These teachers were also reaching out to assist the learners with maintaining their assistive devices. We have many who needed help with their magnifiers. Some needed help with their wheelchairs. These teachers were going out there. We also have children who require a number of therapeutic services, like basic physiotherapy, basic speech therapy. Again, these teachers were making all the effort to reach out there. So in a way, the teachers whom we are celebrating today made the effort to include those learners with disabilities. But whether they achieved equality and equity, that can be a discussion we can have going forward. But they did their part, and we celebrate them.
Before I let you go,
yes,
let's dig deeper into the rural child. Some of these programs were on radios and TVs, and well, the radios were never dispatched by government. They never reached us. The TV programs are limited according to the TV penetration in this country. How about a Ugandan teacher or a Ugandan child who was deep in Namutumba village, where there is no electricity, there is no TV, and possibly he or she doesn't have a radio? With such people, how can we best go from, how can we bring them on board, the inclusion aspect?
I think what I can say is that development agencies like Stromme Foundation and indeed like all other organizations within the TOFI Together for Inclusion Consortium are very good at piloting and demonstrating what is possible.
Yes.
And I think as Stromme Foundation, we kind of set a pace that other organizations can learn from. We distributed solar-powered radios to rural communities. And these solar-powered radios were preloaded with learning materials. And using the abundant sunshine that we have, Uganda is blessed with, the learners who are part of those schools were able to utilize those radios to listen to the preloaded materials without incurring extra cost for batteries and so on and so forth. And those radios were augmenting the role of the wonderful teachers because in some instances, of course, within keeping with the standard operating procedures, the teachers could listen together with the learners and reflect on the learning materials. But the point I wanted to make is that that is a demonstration as a development partner, as a complementer of government, that we could show something that definitely needs to be scaled up. Appropriate technology, they call it nowadays. Thank you.
Wow. That's a good submission. We are having this conversation on Twitter and the other platforms. The hashtag is Resilient Teachers 2021. We're celebrating the teachers today. And with me in studios, I have remarkable people. Coming back to you, Proskovia, when you're going through this entire pandemic and the lockdown, especially you as a teacher, I want to understand what challenges did you see your fellow teachers going through with day-to-day life? And while you saw those challenges, what possible solutions have you thought about how best we can get through them?
Thank you. The challenges I've gone through and the teachers have gone through, some teachers have gone to do generating incomes activities which is not suit for them. For example, sugarcane cutting. They are sharing the same job as their learners. The learner is cutting sugarcane, the teacher is also doing the same. There is no respect for the teachers.
And the value.
Yes. Any other thing, there has been divorce.
Teachers are divorced?
Yes.
Tell me, Proskovia.
Because the husband is...
What happened? Teachers are not resilient in marriages?
Some.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Yes, some are not.
Okay.
Because a man is teaching, but now it is COVID season.
There is no teaching, there is no money.
There is no salary, there is no what. What the wife could do, be there.
I better leave.
I better leave. I go and find where life is soft. So some have lost their marriages.
Their marriages.
Yes.
Very upset.
Then domestic violence has been at a high rate. There has been a lot of domestic violence, most especially in the homes of teachers. There has been quarrels, doing this and the other. This has led them also lose respect before the what?
The community.
The community.
Yeah.
I always say, teacher, you are quarreling with your wife because they are sitting together all the time since morning up to what?
Evening.
Up to evening.
Yes.
That's the result. Then another thing.
These are worrying challenges, though, especially the divorce one took me off the chains, Proskovia.
Education sector is about sector.
Yes.
Various stakeholders to participate.
So, Prosi, how best would we go through this, especially for divorce? How best can we build capacity for the teachers and their spouses to understand that hard times don't last?
What I can urge to my fellow teachers is that we need to at least go for church services to listen to the word of God.
But churches were closed now. Churches were closed. We are looking at the recovery. In case this pandemic persists, how are we going to avoid that kind of scenery again?
Thank you. During COVID season, churches were a bit closed, but there were still counselors.
On the villages?
Yes.
Okay.
You can meet a counselor, then he counsels you. You'll be safe in a marriage.
Then when we talk about business bit.
Something very
please, Mr. Walugembe.
I think
but those are very pertinent issues.
Yes, Andrew, I'm a teacher by profession, not necessarily by practice. And I think all teachers in Uganda take a course on guidance and counseling, because it's thought that the teachers need to have the skills to counsel, to guide their learners. But I think the aftermath of COVID-19 and its challenges clearly bring it that this time the teacher is in dire need of psychosocial support himself. And I wonder whether the Ministry of Education and following through local government, whether the Department for Counseling and Guidance can also be redirected in its operations.
We hope so.
That it just doesn't target the learners, because this time the teachers might be the main customers, the main consumers of those services.
I totally agree. Mr. Gual, when you listen to all these, Proskovia alluded earlier to divorce issues, domestic violence, and of course doing a petty jobs for survival approach with regards to COVID-19. How best can we mitigate these challenges the teachers face? I'm sure even in your community, Mr. Gual, these issues surfaced. How did you handle?
This one majorly affected those teachers in private schools.
Okay.
They had been the main culprits on that. But those of us also in the government, this thing also affected us. There were a lot of stress brought by this COVID. You find that sometimes a teacher wakes up in the morning, have nothing to do, waiting for maybe 1 or 2 programs, especially those who were already staying from the workplace. So it wasn't even easy for them. Apart from that, we were disconnected with our learners. You see, with teaching, you set up your targets. We have our teachers that have set their targets and they have their specific learners that they are grooming so that they succeed at the end of the given cycle. So from that time, there was also breakage on that. Apart from that, we had a lot of redundancy
Yeah.
You see, sometimes when one does not have serious engagement, the person become loose in life.
Oh, yeah.
Teachers engage themselves, especially those one who love drinking and all that one there. You find that due to redundancy, they move and all.
By all that one there, Mr. Gual, you're meaning a lot of casual sex, right?
Of course.
Okay.
Things are not easy for them. Apart from that, other challenges is now how can we cope up with the IT,
yes,
information technologies. Take, for instance, those one in the rural places. Those of us who come from far places, we had no knowledge, no what about the IT. So you had to force us and see how we can now come in and live the new normal. The new normal which is not taught, the new normal which had not been, we are not being trained of, and all that. So you find that all these challenges became very hard for us, and now to overcome it, others are still hanging, others people just created within themselves. I think the best is psychosocial support.
That said, Mr. Gual, how best did you bring your teachers and your staff closer to the IT aspect? Are they, you know, tech savvy? Have they given it a thought? Are they willing to unlearn and relearn and again teach our children?
Our major challenge, like me, I come from an area where there's no access to these technologies.
Wow.
I come from rural villages where we could not access even, first of all, there's no power where I come from, and there's no even connectivity. So what we did with our staffs was to have manual consultation with our learners.
Nice.
We created learning centers, we could move to these places one-to-one. We did not put much effort on digital learning. Due to, number one, lack of this equipment, we were lacking this equipment. Number two, the knowledge, the IT knowledge was completely also lacking. Then now, as we talk, we have consulted some of our partners. They're willing to help us. We talked to Tofi. They say they're going to organize some training for us, in which everybody is embracing. We are now seeing hope for the new normal may come if we embrace that.
Well, thank you so much, Gual. Atim, when I hear that now that's exciting me. Innovation and technology coming into the same wave of recovery. What is Tofi thinking about this? I just want to hear it from you now. Yes.
What is?
About the innovation and the IT aspect. With the little creativeness and the limitations people like Gual and Proskovia had, they were in position to thrive regardless. Now in the wake of COVID-19 and these digital teachings with the Tofi and Stromme Foundation, what are the plans like for the IT skilling of the teachers under your umbrella?
Oh, all right. IT, like you said, COVID-19 has presented unique challenges but opportunities, and the IT technology is one of the opportunities that we have in the education sector and looking at our programs. But we need to be mindful about the context that we are operating in, and though it's good to upscale online, to have a hybrid on some of these interventions, look at online, possibly train the teachers on IT, information technology, communication, and all these things. Basically, the context might limit us. If we're looking at the rural context, where we have those underlying challenges, we do not have electricity, we do not have internet connectivity. Possibly we don't have a number of things that can support this innovation. So my take is we need to contextualize some of these approaches and have a hybrid, and especially for the communities, and look at what actually works. Let's look at what works. Exactly, what works in that context. If we see that because of the underlying challenges in the rural communities, this cannot work, then we need to adapt the continued home-based learning for now until we open up schools come January for the country. But of course, the other learners that are continuing with the online, that is okay for them. But then this is also a learning for our teachers, especially those. We can learn from that and begin to train them on information technology. It's an opportunity for us to build the capacities and never know when electricity reaches those. Don't know. When we get an opportunity to have this, because you know, it needs a lot of investment. Yes, I tell you, it needs a lot of investment.
Yes.
For example, furnishing the schools with computers. I know a number of organizations have also done that, especially in the refugee context, the areas that we're working in. But it needs a lot of investment as well, and also a lot of training of teachers, building the capacities, but also sustainability. So we need to create interventions that are adaptive but also sustainable.
Sustainable, yes.
Yes, that is the key word.
I could add very briefly.
Yes.
When you emphasize IT, information and computer technology, you kind of scare Mr. Gual. But I want you to also put the A, appropriate technology.
Yeah, appropriate technology.
And I have a classic example that I recall when I visited Mr. Gual's school. And indeed many of these schools. Teachers have what they call the talking compounds. That is technology. When I visited his school, everybody was reading for me the different writings that they had put on stones in the schools. That is a technology for the child in Gulu. And if a creative and inquisitive child was to walk into that compound, they would kind of get a learning from that appropriate technology in their community. So I think the emphasis here is how adaptive, how appropriate can we utilize whatever technologies that are suitable for the particular communities, including for children with learning needs.
That's the thing. Mr. Olgembe, now that you've hinted about that, let's talk about the innovation. How much support does the education ministry or the education sector need from government with regards to policies and implementation? That all this that is on paper, I was reading the National Teachers Policy. It's a beautiful one. I'm very excited. I just can't wait my grandchildren to tap into it. But how can we bring it that it's feasible to the teachers down in at the bottom of the pyramid vis-a-vis the teachers at the top of the pyramid?
Policy legislation is a very interesting field. If you recollect the speech of His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda on Youth Day, he made a commitment to the youth that during this Chisanja, during his term of office, he will make free education a reality. Universal primary education has been supposed to be free, but for so many reasons it is eluded many Ugandan children. So let's hope that every part of government is going to support His Excellency to make good his commitment to the youth. But one point I want to make is that, speaking from where I sit at Stromme Foundation and my role as the coordinator for Together for Inclusion, I'm particularly interested in two policies for now. One is the policy on special needs and inclusive education.
Indeed.
This policy was in formulation as far back when I was at university. Now I've been working for 20 years, and that policy is still in formulation. Goodness, colleagues in the Ministry of Education, let's finalize that policy to ensure that we have sufficient guidelines for the inclusion of learners with disabilities. Secondly, I'm very interested in the teacher policy, and I'm particularly interested in the aspect of continuous professional development, because Together for Inclusion, together with other partners in promoting inclusive education like Site Savers, like Handicap International, I can mention several others. We are working with the Ministry of Education to develop packages for delivering continuous professional development for teachers on inclusive education, so that they can gradually and consistently develop their skills.
Wow.
Thank you.
That is a conversation we're still having. We're talking about creativity and innovation. Praskovia, while you're in the lockdown and all that was going on, I want to tap a little bit in your mind again. But before I come to you, let me first go back to Gual. I could possibly forget this. Mr. Gual, Earlier on, Mr. Walgemba has alluded to something, making, is it universal education a reality? That was a statement made by the president.
Yes.
From your perspective as a teacher in an upcountry school, have you seen that the teachers in the public school, have they received the capacity they need? Are we adaptive to the new modalities and dynamics?
Yeah, to some extent, teachers are trying to cope. But it's not very easy. The reality on the ground is our policy, where the president advocates for, and all the Ugandans, of free and compulsory education. I love to acknowledge and appreciate the approach used by the TOFI, especially in the rural area where I come from.
And what does the approach be like?
Yeah, the number one is involvement of very many stakeholders in educational system. We have a body which is called EIC, Education Improvement Committees. This one comprises of local leaders, comprises of community members, and these are people who have been trained how to mobilize the children, how to map these children who are out of the school, and how to report to a different groups that they have. Another, when they map these children from their villages, they bring back to the school. From the school, we have a body which is referred to as the SEED, School Improvement Team. The EIC brings the information to the SEED, and then the SEED now move around to tap these children and understand, bring them into the school. So with that, at least, it's showing, giving us a lot of hope that everybody is now accessing basic education, majorly at the primary level.
That makes a lot of sense. Back to Proskovia, I think he makes a very pertinent point there. Now, Prosy, when we talk about innovation and creativity, what kind of innovations and creativities have you seen your teachers do? Because you started the movement, kwa ujumla, we need to put our children at a center. But when you took that approach, others joined you. What kind of innovations and creativities did you see, and how can we either scale them up, that we can, you know, maybe tap into the recovery wave, or if it's not possible, how can we learn from the new ones, the creatives?
Thank you. The innovation is, I think here we can engage parents to make learning materials or playing materials for their children at home, out of banana fibers like the dolos, bolos, and this can make them busy at home and refresh their minds. Work without play makes
Andre dull boy, you know.
So that I think that can work. Then another thing, encouraging parents to tell children imaginative stories. This can create or brings or colors for listening skill. For example, you can tell your child, long ago, there lived a boy who was stubborn. He lived with his parents, but this boy was stubborn enough, he could not bathe in time. So a wizard came and he put him in the bag. The boy cried loudly. There was a passerby who saved him. Then children can recreate or can recall.
Imagine about
it. Yes. The listening skill. This can help. At least I see as an innovation.
Storytelling is one of the innovations.
Yes.
But do parents today still have imaginative stories? These parents are very busy, either chasing after money, like Atimia said. How best can we creatively use the time we have as parents to emphasize that our children don't go back to school when they're either half-baked or not ready?
Thank you.
Because we don't want to work only on the teachers, but even as the parents. Now I'm learning. I have 2 children here now.
Thank you. You know, when I was still young, my parent used to tell me while cooking food, you know, Proskovia, you are about to do this and this, but it's bad while cooking. You know, even if you are looking for money, you still have time to cater for your child.
Okay, can multitask.
Yes. At times when you are cooking, when you are washing, you can call your daughter, your son, you talk to him, you encourage him or her. Yes, that's what I can say.
And maybe just to add on there, I know the government has done a lot in developing what we call the Parents Book.
Yes.
And as an organization, we are part of this consortium with a number of education institutions that are supporting this cause. The government has developed the Parents Book that is being rolled out to parents, and it provides parents with a step-by-step approach on ensuring learning is continuing at home, in facilitating learning with lots of pictures, with lots of stories, with lots of you know, there is a manual for a parent who has not even gone to school to be able to, you know, to facilitate learning in the school as we wait for reopening. So I think this is an opportunity, it's an innovation, but as an opportunity
I need the
that
book yesterday.
as an organization and as we can support government in ensuring that this is rolled out to the parents that can, for now, ensure that the learners are engaged during this time waiting for school reopening. Yeah.
And that brings me back to your team. How can teachers be better prepared to support the education recovery now as we're trying to finalize the conversation? Now we have seen all the challenges, the creativeness, the inclusion and all that. Now how best can teachers prepare themselves to support the education recovery?
I think basically one of the key things that teachers have to focus on is the aspect of getting vaccinated. We need them to be alive.
That's true.
We need them to be safe.
Yeah.
So I'm just urging out to the teachers out there that please go for this vaccination so that you keep yourself safe and we keep the learners safe. But then also getting out and building their own capacities in whatever we had a number of learnings we've learned from the pandemic. So if it is ICT for development, you know, ensure that you build your capacity. If it is improving on pedagogical skills, competence building, maybe some of them might have forgotten curriculum development, might be lesson planning. Try to do these exercises, try to engage so that you do not forget that knowledge that you actually had. But also reach out to the different spaces that are existing. A number of organizations are providing refresher trainings, you know, go for short courses, even online courses for those teachers that can be able to launch into the online platforms so that we are better prepared while the school is opening. Okay.
Right here on Twitter, thank you so much. Samuel Bwire on Twitter, he says there is no free school in Uganda. I think he has tried something in the public schools and things possibly have not worked out as expected. Then someone here goes ahead. This is Emmanuel Kawunye, says that other countries' schools are operating by. Why isn't Uganda making a thunderstrike those behind the closing of the schools? Now, this brings me back to you, Mr. Walgembe. The closure of schools. We're talking about the recovery of teachers and all. But we have not heard of a conclusive government agenda that is either going to train teachers, that is, whether private or public. How are we going to go around this? Because even with the parents, we're bringing back children to school when we are not sure what kind of teachers they're going to engage with.
So the debate has been out there and it's very interesting. And it's on the extreme, if you could say. On one extreme, there are people who say, let's get back the children in the schools. The school should be able to operate. And on the other end, there are people who say, wait a minute, are really the schools ready? Are the teachers sufficiently prepared to handle our dear children in this situation, just like you've put it? But for me, I believe in a multi-stakeholder approach. The issue of education now is so much the responsibility of government, but also the responsibility of everybody. The real question here is that how can we work together to build back better the education system and more inclusively? And I think for me, I'll say the obvious. Government needs to consult with everybody concerned, the teachers, the parents, the learners, and where I come from the inclusion perspective, organization of people with special interests, like people with disabilities, so that we work together on how to harness the lessons we've learned during the pandemic to build back better. COVID is going to stay with us here much longer, and Uganda is going to remain a developing country, but we must operate, we must work within our limitations and our opportunities. So for me, to sum it all, the answer, the key is in consultations with as a variety and multiplicity of stakeholders as much as possible. Nobody knew we would be in this COVID situation. Therefore, no single entity has the answer of how to get out of it, yet we have to navigate through it together.
Okay. That makes sense. When I come to you, Praskovia, have the local leaders been supportive from the education perspective at the village level, the councillors, the women leaders, the LC ones and all that? And if yes, they've been very supportive, what more support do you need as teachers on the ground from us, the citizens, the parents, us, the children?
Thank you. What I can say, they have been supportive.
Okay.
How? First and foremost, they have sensitized parents.
The leaders?
Yes, the leaders have sensitized what? Parents. To tell parents about COVID-19 and about education. They relate COVID-19 and education. They tell children to stay at home during evening hours because when it reaches night, many bad characters come out. So these LCs, the women councillors do what? They talk to parents, they organize meetings, village meetings, at least to tell their children to stay at home, to tell their the parents to stop child labor. Because these children are at home, parents are using their children as donkeys. You can find a boy of 9 years is carrying a jerrycan of 20 liters. So the LCs have really enforced this on parents to see that children are staying safe in the village while in COVID season is, as well as learning is taking place in the home learning centers.
Wow. Thank you so much. That is Praskovia Nguna from she's the leader caregiver at the Bukana ECCD Center. As we're finalizing this conversation, Mr. Gual, what is your last word to the resilient teachers of 2021 and the COVID teacher? Let me call them the COVID teachers. What could be your last word of hope to stay resilient and stay focused and stay to the prize of teaching the next generation?
Yes, my message to teachers, Andrew, is that let us not lose hope. Let us have faith, number one. Once you have faith, you'll be resilient. A resilient teachers are those teachers that are able to work in any given conditions. We know that things comes and things goes. And we are also there to come to work and then live with time. So our fellow teachers, let us be resilient. Apart from that, let us be trustworthy people. Let people understand. Let us tell people, show to people what they expect from us. Let them get it from us. Teachers are exemplary. Our teachers of today are losing those track. This is something very funny. More so when I look at where I come from, community also have now negative connotation on teachers. When these cheap things, they relate it to primary teachers. This is what also owns us a lot. Like this airtime, in those days, airtime of 500, give me the one of the teachers when they go to buy in the shop.
Very absurd.
Now those one who build very ugly houses, they call this flat roof, these are for teachers. Now why do you level us like that? And when you know that this, the one you are insulting, you are entrusting your child too. Look at this. Our parents need to change our mindset. Sometimes they have now realized the values of teachers.
Yes, they have.
With the corona, they now complain, I wish the school open so that you go away and you disturb. When you are the parents, you are the one talking like this. Does that make sense?
Surely.
This was in our discussion that parents do not have even time for their own children. It is true. Parents are now forgetting that anything good comes from home, anything bad comes from home. So the first teacher is the parents. So let our teachers understand and also change. Let us command respect but not demand it.
Nice.
Apart from that one, our teachers also need to be reliable. Let us learn to be reliable. Let us do what is expected of us. Let us enlighten our community and see how best we can streamline and things to move. Colleagues, it's not easy to be teachers. Very many things are expected of us. Wherever you go, whatever you do, everybody wants to copy it. And more so, it's now getting rotten at a level, at certain levels of educational system in Uganda. Now, these young children who are in nursery are the ones who are envying their teachers. These are the ones in upper stages from primary, secondary, and up to tertiary institutions. Nobody loves to be having any links with the teachers and to be like a teacher tomorrow. This is giving us a very nasty situation. Then to the leaders, let us also see how best we can support our teachers.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much. That is Mr. Gual George, the head teacher of Omoti Hill Primary School, and he was a part of this conversation. Brenda team, your final words of resilience to the teachers. From you as an organization now. Yes.
From Stromme Foundation as an organization, we want to reach out to the teachers to just encourage them that not to lose hope, but also we want to say that teachers are very, very important, and they play a pivotal role in the development of the economy of a nation. And I just want them to know that they are very important in the development of this country and in the development of the education sector. And just to encourage them not to lose hope, to encourage them that to be adaptive, whatever it takes, let them change their mindsets and move with the flow, whatever is happening currently. Let us not lose hope, but let us position ourselves for that recovery. Position ourselves in the sense that we work with the different stakeholders, we build the capacities of our teams, we mentor one another, we encourage one another, we talk to one another, we counsel one another, so that together we build a better nation. Because the impact that you as a teacher creates is really spiral. It moves from generation to generation. Let us contribute to building a lasting change in our country.
Okay. Mr. Olgembe, about inclusion as we're finalizing, we're recovering, and their teachers are dealing with special children with special needs. Your last word as we're finalizing the conversation.
There will be two quick ones.
Okay.
Andrew, the buzzword governing or guiding whatever will become of the post-COVID era or recovery situation is build back better. And we are saying from an inclusion point of view that build back better inclusively. And you can build back better inclusively by ensuring that you leave no child, including a child with disability, behind in whatever we are going to do, be it the continued home-based learning and when schools reopen. And Mr. Gual, speaking strictly as a parent of beautiful boys and beautiful girls, I'm so proud of all teachers from what I see in my children. You do a great job, and you are the reason we are celebrating today. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. That is the conversation we have had from the different stakeholders. With me in studio, I had Brenda Tim, the Regional Education Manager from Stromme Foundation, East Africa, and Joseph Walugembe, the Program Coordinator, Together for Inclusion at Stromme Foundation, East Africa. We had Mr. George Ogwao, the head teacher of Omoti Hill Primary School, and Proskovia Nguna, the lead caregiver at the Bukana ECCD Center. The conversation was about recovery. You and I, and those who have been part of this conversation online, I want to thank you. But take a moment today and celebrate the teachers for their resilience during these turbulent times. This program was proudly brought to you by Stromme Foundation. They're fighting poverty, but you and I have a role. Inclusion at all levels, be it at the bottom of the pyramid, in the middle of it, or at the top of it. If we hold it together, we can build back better. Good afternoon.